Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Knitting Mamas podcast. Today, I want to share with you some really fun things to enhance your knitting session. You are finally making the time to sit down and knit. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can make that knitting even more enjoyable. So let's dive in. Hey there, Mama. Welcome to the Knitting Mamas podcast. If you're a mom who's tired of feeling exhausted and longing for some well-deserved self-care and rest, you are in the right place. I know that finding time for yourself as a busy mom can feel like an impossible puzzle. But guess what? You don't have to compromise anymore. Hi, I'm your host, Nadine Medina, and just like you, I am a mom, wife, and also a happy knitter. Over my 15 years of motherhood, I have been on a journey to discover how to truly recharge without the guilt and the never-ending quest for perfection. The secret? It's all about progress, not perfection. By focusing on simple routines, natural wellness solutions, and the cozy art of knitting, I found the path to feeling whole and content. And on this podcast, I am sharing it all with you so you can do the same. Are you ready to find simple solutions to set yourself free from mom guilt, to take more time for yourself to truly rest, and to use your knitting skills for a mindful routine that creates space in your life so you can breathe easier? Let's take a deep breath, grab those knitting needles, and say goodbye to mom stress. Together, we'll create a supportive community that encourages you to prioritize self-care while juggling all your responsibilities. Sound good? Let's do this. Hey mamas, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Knitting Mamas podcast. Before we dive into today's topic, which is super cozy in the middle of summer, but we need coziness even in the summer, I want to invite you to download my free workbook that I've created just for you. It has 6 simple strategies to help you find more time for yourself to be able to incorporate more of your hobby, also known as knitting, into your life. Knitting, crocheting, crafting of any kind. But for most of you guys out there, this would be knitting. And I want to invite you to download that workbook. It comes with a free video as well that you can watch that kind of ties all the strategies together and helps you really dive into these simple things that you can do to create more of that time in your day without feeling guilty, which is kind of like the biggest part of it, right? So go ahead and download the workbook. You can find the workbook at the following link, which would be so helpful if I had it right in front of me, wouldn't it? You can find the workbook at, oh my gosh, here we go, theknittingmamas.com. One word, so theknittingmamas.com/free workbook. So go ahead, go and get yourself the workbook, download it now. And I would love to hear from you what you think about it. If you've implemented the strategies, if you, implement just one strategy versus all 6 of them, because you really don't need all 6 all at once. You can kind of stagger that and, take your time doing that. I would love to hear from you. And if you are somebody who works better with accountability partners, I have great news for you because we are going to do a 3-day challenge starting on July 30th. So mark your calendars now. In order to participate in this challenge, all you have to do is come into the free community that I have created on Facebook, which you can find at bit.ly/knittingmamas. I will put all the links in the show notes for you so you can come and join us in there. But the 3-day challenge is actually based on the workbook with these 6 strategies for creating more time for yourself. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, thinking I don't have time to listen to that, I don't have time to put that into, action right now, you can come to the challenge. 3 days, we're going to do 2 strategies per day. We're going to implement them together, and then we're going to talk about it in the community. So you are not alone. You can do this with us together. I'm going to do it with you as well. And there's going to be one quick video every day. It's going to be just 3 days, July 30th, 31st, and then August 1st. And I'm just so excited to be able to offer this to you in our community. So be sure to hop over there. I'm going to repeat the link one more time for you just in case. Also to make sure that I actually got it right because there's just too many links. So it's bit.ly, bit.ly/knittingmamas for the free community on Facebook where you can join us in the 3-day challenge to create more time for yourself as a busy mom. And get back to being creative, get back to knitting, do more of it because it's that good. and good for us. So let's do this. All right. And now into today's episode. We're going to talk about how we can make our knitting sessions even more cozy and relaxing. You know, knitting is relaxing in itself, but there's definitely ways where we can enhance that. And I think, you know, since it is so challenging for us to finding this time for ourselves, for our hobby, for our knitting projects, we got to make the most of it when we do sit down and when we actually, you know, do the knitting and really make the time that we have count even more. So let me give you my 5 best tips to make that session more enjoyable, more relaxing, more beneficial, and just more cozy for you. All right. Tip number 1, probably my favorite, honestly. This just goes for all day, not just when you knit, but especially when you knit if you don't do it all day. What is it? Diffuse some high quality essential oils. Let's talk about aromatherapy. Diffusing essential oils like, for example, Stress Away, lavender, grapefruit, joy, those are some of my absolute faves, can create a serene and inviting atmosphere, but also a relaxing atmosphere. And you can kind of mix and match the oils that you want to, you know, really figure out what you're going for in that moment. Do you want to relax? Do you want to boost your mood? Do you want to maybe focus in on something? Like when you have a pattern that might be challenging, you might want to diffuse an oil that actually enhances your focus, right? But the calming scents, no matter what, help reduce your stress and can definitely enhance your knitting experience. So I highly, highly recommend diffusing some really, really high quality essential oils. The choice is yours, but there are definitely different qualities out there. My personal favorites to diffuse have always been, like for over 10 years now, Young Living essential oils. I will pop my link for those in the show notes because you can get actually 10% off with my link, which is super fun. And they have all these amazing oils that I just mentioned, Stress Away being one of my absolute faves, but I also love any citrus oil. There's an oil called Joy. There's lavender, there's orange. You know, the possibilities are endless and you can mix them into blends. It's fantastic. You can create your own little knitting blend, which, by the way, I shared some of those before on my Instagram and in my email newsletter, in the group as well. I think we had them in the group too. So yeah, once you come in the group, I can tag you in those posts and you can actually see the diffuser blends in action for your next knitting session. So fun, so fun. Okay, so here's my tip number 2. Have a special spot just for your knitting. And that may be tricky depending on, you know, the space you're living in and how many people you're sharing it with and your children being all over the place, which obviously, you know, is the case here for me. But I do have my spot where I keep my yarn, I keep my tools, my needles, you know, all the things that I need for knitting. And I have a little chair right next to it, which sometimes people share it. But when I'm like, hey, this is my time to knit, people have to move. And I get to sit there because that's my chair. I just think when you have that little space that you kind of curated just for your knitting, it makes it so much more fun. It's this, like, you look forward to it, you have it set up your way, you have it decorated your way, you know, like I have my yarn right next to me, which is super fun to kind of look at too and dream up new combinations for future projects and things like that. I just love having my own little bubble when I do my knitting. I have to say, though, that, you know, one of my favorite things about knitting is the fact that it's portable and that you can take it anywhere. So obviously it's not the only place I knit, but I definitely find it a special experience when I get to sit in that chair and work on my projects. So number 3, curate a relaxing or mood boosting playlist. That is definitely something that I love doing, is finding songs that put me in that space of relaxation, or, you know, that just make me feel good, for crying out loud. Like, music has such power over us, right? In such a good way, where just make yourself like a happy playlist or a joyful playlist or a favorite song playlist or whatever it is. And if that's calming or more of a, you know, alternative rock playlist, whatever works for you that puts you in a good space. And I think music is such a great way to do that. I think there's a time when, you can knit and watch TV and put your favorite show on, and that can also be fun. But there's definitely so much, I just love the idea of popping headphones in, not having to worry about anybody yelling for me for at least 15 minutes, and enjoy the music that I want to listen to in that moment, full blast on my headphones, and, knitting as I go. I think that's such a great thing to do. And I also know that some designers, one of them being Alexi from Two of Wands, who we had on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago, she actually creates knitting playlists on Spotify, as far as I know. So I think that's such a fun idea to share those with other people. If you found, some jams that you enjoy crafting too. So next tip, of course, this could also be tip number 1, honestly. Have a warm or cold drink nearby, depending on the time of day, I guess, or your mood or whatever is going on. But I always enjoy having some sort of comforting drink with me while I knit. It could range from Earl Grey tea to coffee to a glass of wine or whatever, hot cocoa in the wintertime, whatever that might be. But I do really think that enhances the knitting experience and makes it so much more fun. It just kind of feels indulgent, and I think we deserve that. So make sure that you have your favorite drink ready when you take time for your next knitting session. And my last tip may be something that you don't think about, but I have found it extremely useful lately to use while I'm knitting, and that is incorporating mindful breathing. It sounds weird at first, like, what? Why would I do that? But deep breaths can help you stay present, and it can really get you in that more mindful space where you're kind of tuning out your to-do list and your stressors and your have-tos and all the things that are swirling around in your mind. You're taking care of those things already by listening to music, by focusing on your project, by focusing on your pattern and really being in it. We talked about this in the last episode, how it can enhance that focus on one thing at a time. And this mindful breathing can have such a great effect on you, on your mindset, on your just well-being in general, when you incorporate it into your knitting session. And it's super easy. All you need to do is, while you knit, just remind yourself to take some really nice deep breaths. You can even use your stitches if you don't have to count. And just kind of, for 5 stitches, breathe in, and then for 5, breathe out, depending on how slow or fast you knit. So don't hold me to those numbers. If you're a slow knitter, 5 stitches might be way too long to breathe in or out to. But just kind of, test that out and see how that feels, because it can really also trigger your brain to know that once you start knitting, it's time to relax. It's time to drop your shoulders. It's time to kind of, get the tension out of your neck and out of your forehead and out of your face and just kind of let go. Okay. So this is where knitting becomes kind of like a meditative practice, even though you may not think that's ever possible yet if you're still a beginner. But I promise you, it doesn't take a long time for you to be able to get that rhythmic, stitching going that puts you in that space of, oh, okay, I can let go. And the whole point of meditating and mindful breathing is to practice that, not to be perfect at it, not to have a perfect, I did not think about anything else right now in the last 5 minutes. That's not the point. The whole point and goal of meditating and using knitting as such is to continue to practice to stay in the moment. And I think those two things combined together they're so insanely powerful. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend you trying one or all of these things that I just talked about. Let's recap them really quickly. So make your knitting session more cozy by, number 1, diffusing really high quality essential oils for, increased mood and enhanced stress release. Create a dedicated knitting space. Curate a relaxing or mood boosting playlist. Keep a favorite drink nearby as you knit, and incorporate mindful breathing while you're crafting. I think all of those combined will truly elevate your next knitting session. I cannot wait to hear which one of those you're going to try first. If you want to share it on social media, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at The Knitting Mamas, and you can share this episode out there and then just tag me and let me know which one of these things you're going to try first. Cannot wait to see that. And I would love to thank you for joining me today on the Knitting Mamas podcast. I hope these tips were helpful for you. I hope you are able to create a more cozy and enjoyable knitting experience after you listen to this episode. If you know anybody who would like to hear these tips too, please go ahead and share this episode with them. Not with you, with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear from you in the review section on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review. It's the only way for me to really find out that you love the show. So let me know over there. I can't wait to hear from you. And don't forget to mark your calendar for our exciting 3-day challenge starting on July 30th. The perfect opportunity to get deeper into the workbook that I have provided for you that you can download. And I will hear you and see you next week on the next episode. Until then, take care and happy knitting. Hey mama, I hope you've soaked up some great ideas from today's episode. Remember, a happy mom makes for a happy fam. If today's chat hit home with you, it would mean the world if you could leave a 5-star written review on iTunes. Your review will help other moms discover our community and embrace guilt-free self-care. Also, if you're scrolling through Instagram, why not snap a screenshot of this episode for your stories? Don't forget to tag me at The Knitting Mamas so that I can shout you out on my page as well. Plus, that way we can stay connected and spread the self-care magic. Oh, and have you heard about our cozy Facebook community? It's a guilt-free zone where we share relaxing routines, essential oils, and knitting adventures, and so much more. Come join us today at bit.ly/knittingmamas and let's unwind together. Until we chat again, take care, mama. And remember, looking after yourself is not selfish. It's essential for that balanced life. Catch you soon right here on the Knitting Mamas podcast.